Okay, I want to turn your attention to this article. Autism costs estimated to reach nearly $500 billion, potentially $1 trillion by 2025. The University of California, UC Davis researchers recommend broader access to early intervention and employment support. And this is a very interesting article that I came across, and I highly recommend that you check it out. The University of California, Davis, their health system website. Check out their website. They always have interesting stuff. I'll just read some of the article. So the UC Davis health economists have for the first time projected the total costs of caring for people with autism spectrum disorders, or ASD, in the United States for the current calendar year in 10 years, if effective interventions and preventative treatments for the condition are not identified and widely available. And it goes on. Their forecasts for ASD, so autism spectrum disorder related medical, non-medical, and productivity losses are $268 billion for 2015 and $461 billion for 2025. The researchers noted that these estimates are conservative, and if ASD prevalence continues to increase, as it has in recent years, the costs could reach $1 trillion by 2025. The study is published online in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. So I highly recommend that you check out the full study, because it is definitely well worth the read. The current costs of ASD are more than double the combined costs of stroke and hypertension, and on par with the costs of diabetes, said the study senior author Paul Lee, professor of public health sciences and researcher with the Center for Healthcare Policy and Research at UC Davis. There should be at least as much public research and government attention to finding the causes and best treatment for ASD as there is for these other major diseases. And I totally agree with this. Why is our government not funding our treatments and especially intervention programs like we should be? Moving on. Lee hopes his findings inspire policy changes that emphasize early intervention to reduce ASD symptoms, along with employment and other programs that support the independence of adults with this disorder. This approach would ultimately save money that otherwise would be spent on expensive custodial care, Lee said. Now, Lee worked with co-author Wan Du, who received her doctoral degree at UC Davis, to determine the per person and then total costs of ASD using data on medical services, residential care, special education, in-home care, transportation, employment support, and lost productivity. Now, their information came from a variety of sources, including research literature, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, the evaluations included cost ranges that accounted for age, because services for people with ASD change throughout their lifespans, and the presence or lack of intellectual disability, formerly called mental retardation, which affects the intensity of services, along with varied estimates of population changes and ASD prevalence. And this is an interesting graph over here. Now, the team found that the comprehensive costs of ASD will range from $162 to $367 billion for 2015, with researchers' best estimate of $268 billion, and from $276 billion to $1 trillion, with the researchers' best estimate of $461 billion for 2025. The 2015 figures are on par with recent cost estimates for diabetes and exceed the combined costs of stroke and hypertension. Now, if the prevalence of ASD continues to grow, as it has in recent years, the costs will likely far exceed those of diabetes by 2025. That's less than 10 years away, folks. Now, to reduce these multi-billion-dollar totals, Lee and Du recommended a research investment in ASD equal to that for diabetes, which is funded by the National Institutes of Health, or you can call it the NIH, at more than 5 times the level of research on ASD. Now, the staggering costs identified in this study should serve as a call to action. I could not agree more, said Leonard Abeduto, the director of the UC Davis Mind Institute, an internationally recognized autism treatment and research center. And if you go on their website, you will see they always have research studies going all the time on autism-related topics, and it's always interesting to check out their website to see what study they're working on. Now, we need more funding for research to understand the causes of and development treatments for ASD, Abudo added. We also need to ensure that all children have access to early intervention, to intensive early intervention, and that is key, I think. We need more funding for research to understand the cause of, because we don't have the smoking gun yet, of what causes autism, and develop treatments for ASD, Abudo added. We also need to ensure that all children have access to intensive early intervention, that school-based interventions to support academics as well as social and language skills are adequately funded, and that supports are put in place to ensure better post-secondary and vocational options for adults. Investing in these areas, I believe, will actually reduce the costs to society. In other words, to make these people independent in adulthood, which would be less of a burden on the rest of society and families if they can have an independent life at some point. Now, Lee and Du's study, brief report forecasting the economic burden of autism in 2015 and 2025 in the United States, is available online, so you can go to their website. The research was funded by Autism Speaks, which has done a phenomenal job of funding research studies all over the country, and the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. So there's their information there, and you can also go on the NIH website to check that out. And more information about the UC Davis Health System and its Center for Healthcare Policy and Research, Department of Public Health Sciences, and Mind Institute, you can go to their website right here. It's definitely an interesting website. So there you have it, and there's the rising cost of autism. And this was posted online, and this is what really grabbed my attention. But overall, this is a very interesting study, and this is just an article that kind of summarizes it. I highly recommend that you go to their website and check it out. So, all right, well, stay tuned for my next autism news report. Thanks for listening.